All right, as promised, here we go. This is the second part of this this wonderful zeros of polynomial functions. This is the complex portion. The thing you need to realize is that if you have a complex zero of a polynomial function, that its conjugate root is also a root of the function, okay? So if by chance square root of 2i is one of your zeros, the negative version of that is also a zero. That's what it says. If the square root of 2i is a zero, you know that negative square root 2i is also a zero. And then we did this. And in class I showed you why x squared plus 2 is actually a complex, has two complex roots. And that's these two guys right here. And I can go through that again, maybe at a later date. If you have any questions or if you're just a virtual guy, please just send me a message and I'll create a whole video on just why that is and why I exists and how it really helps us to do this. But I want to move on to the second piece of this puzzle. I'm not going to worry too much about creating functions by having the zeros given to us. I want to look at what happens and look at this wonderful division here, or using synthetic substitution when you're talking about 2 minus I and 2 plus I as your zeros. You're going to be given a function. Here it is. X to the fourth minus 5x cubed plus 3x squared plus 19x minus 30. And then we're told that x equals 2 plus I, and that's a zero. So we're going to put that in and we're going to use our synthetic division. The problem with the synthetic division is you have to know how to FOIL with I, or else you're not going to get any of these answers correct. And you're going to have to know two things. The first thing is this. I itself is equal to the square root of negative 1. If you didn't know that, you should have known that previously. I don't know how else to help you other than give that to you. And that I squared is actually negative 1. And that's going to help us when we start FOILing over here. We have to remember that I squared is negative 1. We're going to set this up. We have 1, negative 5, positive 3, positive 19, and negative 30 as our coefficients up here. And then we're going to start multiplying by 2 plus I. And this is a quantity here, so we really have to be careful because we're going to start having complex quantities and we're going to end up FOILing, and I'm going to show you how that works. 1 drops right down. 2 plus I times 1 is just itself, 2 plus I. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. 0 plus I is I. So we can go ahead and leave that here. Now here's where we run into some fun, and I'm going to take this off to the side and I'm going to do some FOILing. I hope you can see it. I'm going to FOIL 2 plus I, that's this guy here, and I'm going to FOIL by that, and that's negative 3 plus I. That's what we had left over when we did our addition. So we know this part, right? Negative 6. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And we do the outsides, that's plus 2 times I, and then we do the insides. I times negative 3 is negative 3I. And then we're going to do plus I squared. Okay, so we're pretty much done. Let's shrink this down just a little bit and put these two terms together. We have negative 6 minus I, because positive 2 and negative 3 are negative 1. So minus I, and then this I squared plus I squared. This I squared is actually negative 1. So negative 6 minus I plus negative 1, so negative 6 and negative 1 are negative 7 minus I. So that's where that comes from. All right, I'm not going to spend a whole video doing the rest of this. Suffice it to say, we're going to put this up here and we're going to add 3 to it. We're going to come with negative 4 minus I. Sounds good? We're going to go back into this. We're going to FOIL again. Once we FOIL again, we come up with negative 7 minus 6I. We're going to start doing some addition. 12 minus 6I. And believe it or not, when we do all this math, we do come up with 30. Our problem here is, once we're finished, once we get there, we're going to use these same terms, okay? And we're going to rewrite them up here, and then divide by the conjugate. We had 2 plus I here and 2 minus I here, right? And now we start doing some synthetic division, and we end up with something super simple. This ends up being x squared minus x minus 6. Well, you know, we know that this can be factored. This is simply x times x. It's going to be one of each. It's going to be a positive and a negative. The negative is going to have to be bigger than the positive. I'm going to use the factors of 6 that have a difference of 1. So my negative 3 is going to be bigger than my positive 2. And I end up with that. So I have these two factors. I'm going to have x plus 2 minus I and x minus 2 minus 2 plus I. And believe it or not, that works out just right. Other than that, the rest of this should be relatively simple. There we go. There we go. Sound good? That's it. Anything else you need, let me know.